Hey there everyone, I just wanted to let you know what's been going on lately and what's going on now, other than it being cold. So I've been working on my house lately. I haven't made videos of that because it was aggravating and boring. I fixed plumbing, I fixed bad wiring. The previous homeowners left 2 stud spaces of sheeting off the house, put a concrete step up to it, but they filled it full of drywall, so when that got mushy and collapsed, created a ramp for water to come into the house, and there's squirrels getting in and eating walnuts in the crawl space, crawling around in the walls. So I got all that fixed. I insulated the basement, I fixed the floor in there, I fixed all kinds of stuff inside the house. I got 1 ceiling left to cover in the kitchen, a light to put up in the kitchen, and a board to put in the living room, and then I'm done fixing the house. I just need to maintain it, so hopefully that's just stays that way, so I can be out here doing work I want to do instead of being in the house doing work I have to do. So in the garage I've got a few projects. I've got, let's see here, I got 1, 2, that one's kind of a bunch of little projects, but we'll call it one big project, 4. I've got 4 big projects for next year. The first one, my CRF 250L. If you watch me regularly, you'll know I just put a manual cam chain tensioner in it, and this bike's pretty much exactly where I want it to be. You know, I could always use more power, but jack of all trades, master of none. I'm happy with it. I'm going to make a couple long distance modifications to it, being this piece of metal and that cardboard template are going to be a fuel cell in the factory toolbox location. So I need that extra gas because I like that small factory tank. I tried a Cherubies, it warped, I didn't like it. Didn't like the big tanks, I'm keeping that factory one. Adding a fuel cell, I'm redoing the rear luggage rack so I can incorporate a backrest. I don't know if I did a video for it or not, but I've got cruise pegs on here. And then I'm going to make some sort of seat cover. Potentially, in the future I'd like to get a custom-made like Russell seat for it, but that's kind of extreme. So I'm just going to get a seat cover for this to make it a little more comfortable. And the reason for all those long distance modifications is that I want to take this bike from where I live in Minnesota down through my old backyard in Iowa, down through the Luss Hills, which are absolutely gorgeous on the west side of Iowa, over into Nebraska, up the river, and then out into the Sand Hills. There's this road between Arnold and Dunning, Nebraska. Once a year there's this thing called the SORC, Sand Hills Open Road Classic, I believe. They use it as a racetrack, but it's Arnold and Dunning, Nebraska. Kind of north central Nebraska, I believe. It's been a while since I've researched this, but I know it's there. So I want to take this 300cc dirt bike enduro all the way down there and back. Now you're thinking, well, you live in Minnesota, right? Yes, I did say that. Yes, it's just over 1,000 miles for me to do that trip. Yeah. So that qualifies, if I do over 1,000 miles or more in 24 hours or less, that qualifies as an Iron Butt Association Saddle Sore 1000. I've done one before. I'll put the link somewhere up here or down in the description so you can see my first one that I did. If I can get that certificate for this bike, great. I'll get the certificate, send in the paperwork, that sort of thing. If I can't get it, I don't care. I don't have to prove anything. I just enjoy being able to, you know, see it on the wall and kind of laugh to myself like, you're crazy sometimes, you know. It's neat to have, but if I don't make it in the time limit, or if I end up cutting a big corner off of it just so I can make it home faster, I don't care. I'll put a couple pictures of the ride up on the wall instead. So I'll probably try and put a link to that down in the description too. So that's with this bike what's going on. I've got, well, I was going to say 3 other motorcycles in here, but none of them really count as motorcycles. So I'll grab the camera here. The first one here, I believe, is a Kawasaki, the 1973 K11E 2-stroke 250. The other not quite motorcycle is this GS 550E, which you might remember sometime in the past I was going to convert into an electric motorcycle, but it's got swing arm problems, some life stuff came up and got in the way of doing projects, so that got put to the wayside. But I've got another idea for that. And my third not quite motorcycle is this Doodlebug, but that's going away soon. My kids are too small to ride it anyway. We don't really have anywhere to ride it in town, so the back end of this bike is going to be put onto this bike and made into a hardtail, but all the good parts off of this bike, the seat pan, if there's anything in the rear fender that's any good, that muffler, that engine, that's all going eBay. If you need parts for that, let me know. We can set up a deal. That's all going. The reason for that is because that's going to get raked out, hardtail with the 550E rear end. I'm going to cut this frame and stretch it out about 2.5 feet, because what I want to do with this frame is drop two 125cc engines in it in line. You know, the ones on eBay that are like $200 that everybody's putting in drift trikes. Two of them in a row. Why? I haven't ever owned a motorcycle with two engines. I've never built a motorcycle with two engines. Why not? Let's do it. So that's the plan for this thing. So that's why it's on the stand. Cylinder heads off. There's penetrating spray in there soaking, trying to get that piston loose. Luckily it was above the ports. If that would have been below the ports, that would have sucked to try and get loose because I wouldn't hold fluid. So I'm going to work on getting all that stuff loose, eBay that. And then you're asking, well, what about the front half of this bike? Well, that's going to be a much bigger project. Yes, a bigger project than putting two engines in a dirt bike. This one, the front end of this, is going to be used in a project. Now, if I can get all the stuff lined up for it, one of my buddies is putting a 289 in a Ford Ranger, and he's going to be getting rid of the 2.8 V6, the 5-speed manual, the transfer case, and the rear end from that truck. If I can get those parts, or some of them, what I'm going to do is take that front end and weld it to those other parts and make a trike. How will you do that, you might ask? I've been asking myself that a lot too. Neat idea, might be more difficult to execute. So take the 2.8 V6 transmission with a transfer case, rear end, drive shaft. So this would be the front drive shaft had this been conventionally installed, you know, with the rear drive shaft coming out this way. But the way I'm going to do it is make it a rear engine bike, put some sort of frame on there, you know, something like that, put that Suzuki front end on it, and then have seating for two. All the engine and transmission stuff will be behind it, and then it'll be a rear engine trike, kind of like the old Volkswagens, but with a Ford 2.8 and a transfer case instead of a transaxle and an air-cooled engine on the back. You know, probably have to put that radiator back here. Hopefully I can use a factory fan to flip it around and push air through. So hopefully something like that. We will see. If all else fails with making it a rear engine trike, I want it to be rear engine so it does wheelies. If all else fails, you know, I can just make it a front engine trike like that, seating there and there, that type of deal. But that's a last resort if I can't get all the rest of this to work. The only questionable part, I think, is will this transfer case hold up driving it like that? So that is the plan on how to make the front end of that and some Ford Ranger parts into a workable trike. So like I said, most of this going away, rear wheel off, maybe there'll be a sidecar someday, that rear wheel, who knows. That's going to go on a long distance trip. Ass end of that's going to be that twin engine chopper thing. Front end's going to be a trike. This is going away. There's a new snow blower I'm going to be getting soon, but that's just lawn equipment. That's just more work. That's not exactly a fun project, but it'll make me happy because I'll be outside less versus scooping. So I've got one more project outside. I'll show you that quick, and I will add, I might try and make that self-propelled. This next project I'm going to show you outside, I might try and make it self-propelled. I've got a lawnmower rear end. I do not have a motor. But I wonder what the land speed record is for one of these things. Not a vehicle with this added on, of this as a vehicle to ride on. Well, let's go out and look, then that'll make more sense. I've also got this tank here. It's probably, 5.5 foot tall, and it's about as wide as my shoulders are. And it's probably 3.5 foot wide this way. It's an old fuel oil tank for a heater, and we pulled it out of my buddy's basement with a winch. But that's going to be a smoker. Eventually, I think it is anyway. I'm not 100% sure how far or how much I'm going to cut it down, but I'd like to try smoking some meat. That was a nice tank. I emptied it out. We'll see where it goes from there. Probably in the spring, because I don't want to work outside on that thing. So like I said, there's plenty of guys that took trucks or straight trucks and put smokers on them. There's guys that have smokers on motorcycle sidecars, but that's a vehicle with a smoker attached. That is not a smoker you ride. So I wonder what the land speed record is for a ride on top smoker. Maybe, who knows. So make sure you're subscribed. See this stuff happening. I'll probably make playlists for them, just kind of updates as I go versus one big reveal, because it might take me all year or 2 years to completely finish, you know, the big bike projects. So make sure you're subscribed. You can check out the progress as it happens. If I do an adventure rider kind of blog on how everything's come together, that'll be in the videos descriptions for that specific project. So until then, make sure you're subscribed. Don't miss out. I'm gonna go inside where it's warm. See you later.